Ever catch yourself marveling at like all the stuff humans have accomplished? I mean, it's mind-blowing, building these massive skyscrapers or grappling with these huge philosophical questions and even sending probes across the solar system to like other planets.
Yeah, it really is
That makes
remarkable.
you wonder, doesn't it? How did we develop this unique intelligence? What sets us apart from, the rest of the animal world, cognitively speaking?
That's the question we're tackling in this deep dive.
Exactly.
We're exploring Michael Tomasello's influential work,
Oh, yeah.
The Cultural Origins of Human Cognition, which was published back in 1999 by Harvard University Press.
That's a classic.
And this book had support from a variety of sources.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the Guggenheim Foundation and individuals like Philippe Rachat and Michael Cole really delving into the evolution of human cognitive abilities.
So it seems like the central question here is, what propelled our intelligence to this, advanced level?
Right.
Tomasello points out this kind of evolutionary puzzle that, it hasn't been that long, relatively speaking, only about 6 million years since we shared a common ancestor with chimpanzees.
Right.
And genetically, we're still quite similar.
Right.
Yet there's this massive cognitive gap.
Yeah.
We're talking complex tools, language, sophisticated societies. And while chimps are intelligent in their own right, they operate on a different cognitive plane.
Exactly. And that small genetic divergence, about 1%, it doesn't seem like enough to explain the vast difference in cognitive skills.
Right.
It's a puzzle that's captivated scientists for a long time.
So Tomasello's main idea is that the key isn't solely in our genes, but in how we learn from each other. Right. This unique capacity for social learning and cultural transmission.
Exactly. That's his core argument.
Yeah.
He suggests that humans evolved distinctive ways of learning from one another, which led to what he calls cumulative cultural evolution.
I like that.
So think of it like a ratchet. Each generation learns from the one before, not just copying, but adding their own improvements and innovations.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, so it builds up increasingly complex skills and knowledge over time.
Okay, so let's delve deeper into this basic puzzle, as he calls it.
Okay.
6 million years. Sounds like a long time. But, in evolutionary terms, it's a blip.
Right, it's a relatively short period.
And the cognitive differences are really astounding.
Yeah.
It's not just that we're a bit smarter.
Yeah.
We have this capacity for abstract thought, creating and understanding complex symbols like language mathematics. It's a whole other level.
You're absolutely right. And if you look at the archaeological record for a significant period, the human lineage didn't exhibit this dramatic cognitive leap.
Oh, interesting.
It's more recently that we see the rapid development of sophisticated tools, symbolic art, and complex social structures.
That's fascinating. So what about our primate relatives?
Yeah.
They're clearly intelligent creatures.
Absolutely.
What kind of cognitive abilities do they possess?
Non-human primates. They display impressive cognitive abilities. They navigate complex social landscapes, form alliances, understand social hierarchies, and many species use tools effectively.
Right.
Chimpanzees are famous for their termite fishing skills, using these carefully crafted sticks.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool.
They also exhibit social learning. They can learn new behaviors by observing others.
The book mentions this example of macaque potato washing in Japan.
Yes,
That's a classic example of a behavior spreading through a group.
it is.
How does that fit into the picture?
That macaque potato washing is a really interesting case.
It is.
A young macaque began washing sand off potatoes, and the behavior did spread through her troop.
Yeah.
But the way it spread suggests something important.
Okay.
It might have been largely due to individual learning facilitated by observing others, which is called social enhancement.
Okay.
So the other macaques saw her doing it, and they were perhaps more likely to figure out the technique themselves
Right.
rather than precisely copying her method.
Interesting. So they saw the outcome and found their own way to get there,
Exactly.
not necessarily imitating the exact steps.
Right, and the spread was relatively slow, too, indicating it wasn't this rapid, faithful transmission of a learned skill.
Interesting. Okay, so with the chimp termite fishing, where different groups have different techniques, is that a better example of cultural transmission?
Yes, those different termite fishing techniques across chimpanzee populations point to a stronger cultural influence.
Okay.
Local ecological factors likely play a role.
Makes sense.
The type of termite mound might require a specific tool,
Oh, okay.
but the specific variations in tool design and usage within a group are probably passed on through some form of social learning.
Right.
But even here, there's debate about whether it's true imitation or a form of emulation combined with social facilitation.
I see. So while they can learn from each other and have these traditions, Tomasello argues there are these fundamental limits to their cognition compared to humans.
Right.
What are the key differences in what they seem to understand?
A crucial distinction lies in their understanding of others as intentional beings
Okay.
with their own mental states.
Oh, okay.
Non-human primates don't seem to grasp the concept of false beliefs the same way we do.
Right.
For example, they typically fail tasks where they need to understand that someone else has a mistaken belief about the world.
Interesting.
And their ability to deceive others also seems largely limited to learned behaviors within specific contexts,
Okay.
rather than a flexible understanding of manipulating another's mental state.
That's a really subtle but important difference.
It is.
It's not just about behavior, but understanding the why behind the behavior in others.
Exactly.
And the book highlights these everyday human actions that are surprisingly rare or absent in non-human primates.
Yes.
Things like pointing to show something to someone else.
Precisely. You rarely see a chimpanzee spontaneously point to an object just to direct another's attention,
Yeah.
just for the sake of sharing attention.
Right.
They don't typically hold up an object to show you because they find it interesting. And they want you to see it too.
Right.
Actions like bringing an object to you for your benefit, coactively offering help, or intentionally teaching a new skill,
Right.
those are also largely absent in their natural repertoire.
Interesting.
Tomasello argues these behaviors require a fundamental understanding of others as intentional agents with
Yeah.
their own goals, beliefs, and perspectives.
That makes sense. This brings us to the core of Tomasello's argument.
Yes,
This unique nature of human social learning.
you're right.
He talks about imitative learning, instructed learning, and collaborative learning.
Yes.
What makes human social learning different within these categories?
The key difference is the underlying social cognition.
Okay.
Human cultural learning, regardless of the specific type, is underpinned by our ability to understand others as intentional agents, beings with goals, intentions, and viewpoints that might differ from our own.
Interesting.
This understanding, this intentional stance, enables a far richer and more flexible form of social learning than what we observe in other primates. It allows us to learn from others in a way that goes beyond simply learning about the world in their presence.
So it's deeper than just picking up information from being around someone.
Exactly.
It's about understanding their intentions and learning from that.
Precisely.
And a crucial development in this is the emergence of joint attention in human infants around 9 to 12 months old.
Yes.
This seems like a real turning point.
It's a fundamental shift in how human infants engage with the world and with other people.
Right.
Joint attention is characterized by this triadic interaction: the infant, an adult, and an external object or event,
Okay.
all within a shared focus of attention.
Right.
This, we are both looking at this, understanding is crucial for shared intentionality,
Makes sense.
and subsequently for more advanced forms of cultural learning.
Right. It's like the foundation.
It is the foundation upon which so much else is built.
The book uses figure 4.2 to highlight the difference between how chimpanzees and human infants understand gestures in communication. Can you explain that in a relatable way?
Okay, so imagine a gesture like pointing.
Okay.
When a chimpanzee sees someone point, they mainly interpret it as a cue about what that person is going to do next,
Okay.
or where something interesting might appear.
Right.
Their understanding is mostly about the immediate behavioral implications for themselves.
I see.
Now contrast that with a human infant in a joint attentional scene.
Okay.
When an adult points to a toy and says, "Look," the infant understands that the adult intends for them to also focus on that toy.
Right.
It's a shared act of attention.
Oh,
Looking
Yeah.
at that,
Yeah.
the infant understands the communicative intent behind the gesture,
Oh, wow.
the desire to share a focus of interest.
That's really interesting.
And that's the key difference illustrated in figure 4.2.
Yeah.
Chimpanzees see the gesture as a predictor of action. Human infants see it as an invitation to share attention.
So it's not just about following a direction.
Right.
It's about understanding that the other person wants to share their focus with you. And this understanding of intentions is central to Tomasello's idea of imitative learning and the ratchet effect.
Exactly. Human imitative learning isn't just mimicking movements.
Right.
It involves trying to understand the goal and the intended method behind the action.
Okay.
This allows for much more accurate and faithful transmission of skills across generations,
Interesting.
because learners are trying to reproduce not just the outcome, but also the process.
Yeah.
They're more likely to replicate the effective techniques, which allows for subsequent learners to build on those techniques and make improvements.
Right. So it keeps building.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the essence of the ratchet effect depicted in figure 2.2.
I see.
Each generation adds something, preventing us from having to rediscover everything anew.
Right. And the book contrasts this with emulation learning in chimpanzees.
Yes.
What's the key difference there?
In emulation learning, the learner focuses on achieving the same end result as the demonstrator,
Okay.
but they don't necessarily copy the specific actions used to get there.
Yeah.
They might figure out their own way to open a nut or retrieve food.
I see.
While emulation can be smart and efficient, it doesn't guarantee the faithful transmission of specific techniques.
Right.
This hinders the kind of cumulative improvement that drives the ratchet effect.
Okay.
For example, if a chimpanzee sees someone use a specific series of steps to crack open a nut,
Yeah.
it might just try smashing the nut against a rock until it opens.
Right.
A human child, on the other hand, is more likely to try and replicate the specific steps they observed,
It's interesting.
even if they don't immediately understand why those steps are necessary.
So for cultural accumulation, the how really matters for humans in a way that it doesn't seem to for chimps.
Exactly.
Now, language is obviously a huge part of what makes human cognition unique. How does linguistic communication fit into Tomasello's framework of social learning and shared intentionality?
Well, language, according to Tomasello, is built directly upon this foundation of joint attention and shared intentionality.
Oh.
Linguistic symbols, words, are inherently intersubjective. Their meaning comes from a shared understanding within a social context.
Right.
To learn and use language effectively, you have to understand that others have intentions and perspectives that might be different from your own.
Makes sense.
He talks about these joint attentional scenes as being the crucial environments for language acquisition.
What?
It's within these shared moments of focus that children begin to map words onto the world and understand the communicative intentions behind those words.
So can you give us a concrete example of how children learn those communicative intentions behind words?
Yeah.
The book mentions the classic big bird on a swing type of experiment.
Yes, in these experiments, an adult might say, "Look, big bird," while actually looking at something else entirely.
Oh, that's funny.
And what's fascinating is that even young children will often look to see what the adult is actually attending to, rather than just blindly following the verbal cue.
Interesting.
They understand that the word big bird is meant to refer to whatever the adult is jointly focused on with them. This shows that even early language learning isn't just about associating sounds with objects. It's about understanding the underlying communicative intent, what the speaker wants you to pay attention to.
So there's deeper meaning there.
There is. Unlike apes, human infants inherently conceptualize themselves and their communication partners as jointly attending to a referent.
So language isn't just a tool for labeling things.
Right.
It's a tool for sharing intentions and perspectives.
Exactly.
And once you have language, it opens up all these possibilities for learning and cultural transmission through discourse and instruction.
Absolutely. Language allows for the transmission of far more complex cultural knowledge
Right.
than observation alone could ever achieve.
Yeah.
Through language-based instruction, adults can explicitly teach children about causal relationships,
Okay.
explain the reasoning behind actions, and convey abstract concepts.
Interesting.
And children, through conversations and narratives, learn to take on different perspectives to understand how others might think or feel about a situation.
That's powerful.
It is, and this is deeply intertwined with the development of theory of mind,
Okay.
the understanding that others have their own beliefs, desires, and intentions,
Right.
and language plays a critical role in its development.
And finally, the book touches on this concept of representational redescription.
Yes.
How does that contribute to our unique cognitive abilities?
So representational redescription is the idea that humans, through the influence of language and cultural learning, can take the knowledge we have and re-represent it in more abstract and flexible formats.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Initially, a child's understanding of how to stack blocks might be tied to the specific physical act of stacking them.
Okay.
But through language and interaction, they can redescribe this knowledge.
Right.
They can understand the general principles of balance, of size relationships, and so on.
I see.
This allows them to think about stacking blocks in new ways, to plan more complex structures, and to apply these principles to other areas.
So they can extrapolate it.
Exactly. This ability to re-represent knowledge at different levels of abstraction is crucial for complex reasoning, problem solving, and creativity.
Okay, so to sum it all up, Tomasello's big argument is that our unique cognitive abilities aren't primarily due to some massive genetic leap in the last few million years.
Right.
Instead, it's the evolution of these specialized forms of social learning and cultural transmission that's key.
Yes.
The real game changer is our ability to understand others as intentional agents,
Exactly.
which enables true imitative learning and this incredible engine of cumulative cultural evolution, the ratchet effect.
Yes, the ratchet effect, which allows us to build increasingly complex skills and knowledge across generations.
And the cornerstones of this uniquely human cultural cognition are the early development of joint attention and the mastery of linguistic communication.
Right, both of which depend on and further enhance our capacity for shared intentionality.
It really changes how you think about human intelligence, doesn't it?
It does.
This capacity for shared intentionality in cultural learning isn't just about building better tools or communicating more effectively.
Right.
It's the very foundation of our societies, our technologies, and the vast body of knowledge we've accumulated.
It really is.
So, considering this incredible power of cultural inheritance and the ratchet effect, what does that tell us about our potential for the future?
That's a big question.
It really is. It's a profound question to consider.
It is.
Thanks for joining me today for this deep dive into the cultural origins of human cognition. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the evolution of human intelligence.
It really has.
Until next time, keep those minds curious.
I will.
Bye for now.